Welcome to DCPC Live presents Scene Support, the podcast that highlights the unsung heroes of the music scene. Recording engineers, show promoters, record labels, graphic artists, photographers, zine writers, sound people, and more. I'm your host, Scott Pash, owner and operator of DCPC Live, a DIY record label documenting live hardcore, punk, ska, and metal shows on short-run vinyl. I have 30 years experience playing drums in hardcore bands in DC, Florida, and New York, as well as booking and promoting shows, and I've had the privilege to meet with a lot of amazing people. Unfortunately, I'm here with these guys. Today's guests are Mike Dietz and Phil Bartsch. I'm going to pronounce it right. Phil Bartsch, who are in RBNX, so we don't give a fuck about their band today. We're here to talk about them because they serve on the committee for Punk Island, an annual free DIY punk festival in New York City that's been going on since 2008. In 2024, they hosted 75 different bands, including Winterwolf, World Sucks, Ma'afa, Backslider, RBNX, Soji, Stop the Presses, Car Bomb Parade, Trouble Bound, and more. I'll be honest, I've lived in New York almost 2 years now, and with one family obligation, others have bet at me for making it to Punk Island. But I see the pictures, I've watched the videos, and I'm always impressed and more than a little bummed that I wasn't there. Hopefully I can be there in 2025. Thank you guys for being on the thing. I can't wait to hear what you tell me all about this shit. What's going on, dude?
Have you never been?
No, I've never been. Oh, yeah. I lived in Florida until 2 years ago, right? Then I moved up here, and the first one you had...
Before that, though, obviously.
Oh, of course, I heard about it.
Right.
But, you know,
That's
it's
really
it's
cool.
a long drive from Florida to New York.
No, but, like, to start off about it, it's New York's biggest DIY punk event, period.
All ages, no drinking, no drugs.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
hosted over 100 bands at a certain point. There's been, 10 stages at a certain point with just, like, thousands of people coming out. And it's a beautiful day.
It looks absolutely phenomenal. I think both times I had to, like, drive my kid and drop them off at camp somewhere or something like that. So if you could coordinate this year's Punk Island with my kid's camp schedule.
Well, see, there's always a floating date thing, and because it's a collective and there's so many people, that always gets changed. You know, the event itself has actually changed locations through the boroughs through its entirety. Like, it was initially at Governor's Island in the beginning.
Okay.
And there were some issues that had happened there, so they stopped doing it there. We had done it at Randall's Island a bunch. That seemed to be a real viable spot. We had gone and done it other places with a smaller capacity, basically. And we had gone other places with a larger capacity and realized that really doing it at Randall's is, like, key to the situation. I like a fixed date on the whole thing because it helps book a lot more stuff throughout the year. Because
Sure.
aside from Punk Island, we do other fests, we're in a band, so we do other stuff.
Yeah, and you do fundraisers for Punk Island, if I recall.
Normally, right, Make Music New York really likes to push us to do it on the solstice, on the summer solstice. So it's the longest day of the year. You get the most time outside, too. So that way, if you're in a park, your sound permits are good for a certain time and all, and you still have lighting situation. But, yeah, I mean, normally they aim for the 21st. That also falls on Father's Day a lot, which punk dads it works out for, but for a lot of other families, it doesn't work out for those family members kind of thing.
Yep. No, I get it. As I told my kids, like, it's Father's Day and your dad wants to go to Punk Island. He's like, no, you're dropping me at my camp. I'm like, fine. I was like, are you a good father or not? How else do you want to celebrate Father's Day other than being a good father? And I'm like, fine. All right, so let's assume that there are people that have no idea what Punk Island is. Let's assume there are people out there that don't know what Punk Island is. Give me your 1 minute elevator speech. If you're on an elevator for a minute, that's a really long fucking time. But give me a 1 minute elevator speech explaining what Punk Island is to those people who are not in the know for some reason.
All right, who's timing me? Are you timing me?
You're on the clock right
It's
now.
a loose
Am I
one.
in the elevator right now? No.
It's a loose 1 minute.
A loose 1 minute. Hello, sir, ma'am, or whatever you may identify. Do you enjoy not spending money and having fun in New York City? Well, do I have a day for you? It is not set yet, but if you give me your number, I will text you the list of bands that we are going to have on this amazing day.
There's going to be over 100 of them.
That have all agreed to play without knowing when.
Run by generators, Will, and a couple permits.
Will's not a person.
It's outdoors, so it will not smell contrary to belief, and you will have a great time. Now, please give me money.
So, but what inspired this? Like, how did this start? Phil says that you're the archivist. Where did this come from? What happened?
So Make Music New York is the funding behind it. They're the people who got behind it and wanted to basically have this festival. And it started way back, and there was a handful of individuals who ran it very, very punk. It it ended up causing a few problems, but because there was a collective, they stayed afloat. And
that's a great answer. That's a great answer.
There was always a certain amount of funding, so that way, the porta potties, the dumpsters, the permits, and all that stuff aren't coming out of the pockets of everyone who's putting in. Because it's a free event. So
Sure.
New York City, whoever the donor is, we're unsure of. Make Music New York has this donor every year, and they give us this set amount of money, and we've always made do with what we've had, basically, and we put on a fucking kick-ass show. They like to do it and associated with Porch Stomp and a couple other New York City-related events during the solstice, actually, is their whole thing.
Okay.
So it's a big outdoor live New York City thing is where it stems from.
All right, so how do you decide? You said 100 bands, right? That's a shit ton of bands. I think I mentioned last year you had at least 75 different bands. How do you decide? That's a process, because I have to imagine just within New York City alone, there's 50 bands that want to play. So how do you decide who gets to play? Who?
Well, we all have our own stages. So we run the lunchbox stage. And
okay.
At our stage, every band, there's a rule for the stages. Every stage has to get, I believe, 2 new bloods. So it's bands that have never played before.
Oh, I like
so
that.
That's locked in.
Well, yeah, just 2 new bands, period, basically. They're under a year old. Yeah, have no association with anyone of Punk Island. They're just you're just listening and looking.
2 bands you just found.
When it comes
they can't be your friends.
Right now it's available where we can start looking at all the bands that have.
Well, it really depends on who's applied and who hasn't been taken yet. We've had friends that have been on other stages and we've absorbed bands. So it truly is a collective. We have kind of a rough draft of what we want to accomplish each of our stages. I'm at 7 last year, was it this year?
I truly don't remember the amount of stages. I don't want to be quoted on.
Yeah, let's not quote on something.
But it's basically a huge list to pull from, and you just sit there and you look and listen. You see where people are from. We like to bring bands in internationally if we can. Punk Island, because it's an all ages DIY free thing, it does make it hard to pay bigger bands. So it ends up being a free thing, or making some kind of thing worth it, basically.
Yeah, but we kind of center everything around headliners, quote unquote, or bands that we think that'll be a good draw for the fest, so that we can attract, just from a social media aspect, oh, come see this band, A, for free, B, outside in New York City. So it's really cool. So each stage is in charge of finding a band they think is going to kind of they can center around their whole, set times around and all that stuff. But again, it just really depends on who applies, and then we go through it and we see who hasn't played before. I mean, if you've played 1 year, you can't play, I think it's 2 years afterwards. So
I appreciate that.
We have there's a whole constitution in there. We're fortunate enough, if you're an organizer, if you do all the work, you're allowed to play. So that helps us get to meet new fans and new friends and help our business, because this is all a business.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
So
because I go to a fair amount of festivals. Living in Florida, I went to the fest every year for a decade. And I love the fest, but there's a lot of repeat bands that are there year after year. And I'm can you give a new band a chance? I mean, I appreciated that there are some bands that take a year off now and then. I'm thank you. Go ahead.
No, and like you said, and he said, the repeat thing, we try to really avoid that. Aside from organizer bands that are consistent yearly, even that, I try to switch up, and have someone else in. We only have RBNX every year, really, and we try to bring another friend band who's helped us out to do that kind of stuff, and put them in as that position. But, we have tons of friends bands who, like you just said, everyone asks, how do we get on? How do we get on? Can we secure a spot? And really, it goes through the collective. We have a lot of say on who's on our stage, but at the end of the day, there is big decisions made across the board for larger bands that are gonna basically be the shining point of its stage. So that way it makes the day run through and everyone's going to check everything else out.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me a little bit of
we absorbed.
You absorbed.
I'm sorry. So 1 year we absorbed from our friends. Had the leg drop stage. They asked if we would host Rebelmatic, which is one of our favorite bands in the city. So we got to host Rebelmatic, who I know you know well.
I love them. Did their live record, and they're playing a show for me in April.
To have our friends, yeah, it's awesome, and we're gonna be playing with them next month in Brooklyn, the 11th. So we're excited for that. But We booked Enrage. Enrage is one of the longest running hardcore bands in Staten Island. Shout out to our friend Jeff Enrage, who runs Mother Pugs. Definitely a place you should be looking into if you want to get into. He's got so many dates and he's such a sweetheart.
Awesome.
We'll be playing there on February 21st.
In February, yeah. But to make a long story short, we had both those bands back to back, and that was just awesome. That was a dream come true. So like, it's like, but we absorbed one of those bands. So it's like sometimes you have to be flexible. We had last year some bands needed to come to our stage, and we had enough time to do it. So we have a time. Everyone has a time amount of slot. It's like you basically have a blank canvas, and it's kind of from our perspective, it's like as long as we have the power and permission to do it, you'll have a show.
So how do you manage the shows per stage? So like I know at Tech Fest, where they've got 15 venues going on, they stagger their shows at least to some degree, so that like you can catch 15 minutes of one band, 15 minutes of another. You've got 7 stages. You're not all starting at 3:00, all at 3:30. Like, are you staggering the times, or are they all starting? Or is it just like free for all? Everyone runs their stage the way they run it, and you go where you go.
So we are given a certain time that our permit runs from to start and end. And based on how many bands you have on your stage, there's a suggested time to start, but you can start the minute that sound permit goes till the second it ends, and just jam them all in there if you really wanted to. But everyone tries to run it as professional as possible and run it smooth. So there are staggered times. There are stages that do have the same start times, but there's also probably 6 or 7 other stages that don't have the same start time.
Sure.
So you can catch 3 or 4 songs from this band, that band, and just legitimately walking down the line or in a circle.
Okay, that's super rad.
That's actually one of the greatest parts about it too.
That sounds like one of the parts I would love, right? Because the idea that,
and like even
unlike that, I can walk in like 15 venues. I can just walk down.
Well, that's the thing. There's venues, so you're walking down the block. You got to go into this place, into that place, show all this. Punk Island, you're just there, and you are just walking around in a circle, or walking in a line, or in whatever kind of situation it's mapped out as, and you can see all these bands just like that.
That's awesome. Do you have all the bands? But I haven't been to Warped Tour since '98.
I got Sun Poisoning at the last one.
I mean, I think I took a coworker of mine who was like a teenager to a Warped Tour in '98, maybe '97. It's a long time. Which back when the Warped Tour was actually punk rock.
But yeah, dude, that's I think like one of the best parts about Punk Island is the way it's set up, the actual logistics of the day.
That sounds great. Yeah. And do you backline all the bands to make it easier for changeovers, or does everyone have to? Like, I know some festivals will have like sponsored by Orange, and everyone have an Orange amps already set up and a drum set up, and everyone has to just bring their heads, bring their breakables, and be done. Or is it like?
So yeah, every band is designated their own. They have to have their own backline. There is some sharing that goes on. There's a couple of stages that do help out and have extra gear and whatnot. But every stage is supposed to have their own backline set up. If bands play with combos or whatever, they can bring their own stuff, but it's suggested to just bring your heads and make stuff easy for changeovers,
Okay.
Just bring breakables, bring heads.
All right.
Yeah, you will have to walk it across.
But it is super DIY too, so it's not like anything sponsored by Orange or this and that stage. It's going to be sponsored by anything, it's.
I get that.
It's New York's biggest DIY punk fest, and they really stick to it with that.
Stick to the DIY. So do you get vendors? I believe you get like zine vendors. Is that what you limit your vendors to, or do you allow like record labels and skateboarding companies and shit like that to like set up tables?
Sales. There is no monetary transfers. There is no selling of that kind of stuff. Bands might bring their merchandise and have it, but aside from that, I mean, you're talking about like Punk Rock Saves Lives. They're set up, they're donation only. So there are some donation people there, but like all in all, everyone's there to kind of like give, all the vendors are there to kind of just show off and support the scene and have stuff going on. And with the zine vendors, actually, there's been a lot of stuff like self-defense courses and other training courses that have gone on in that.
Very rad.
So there's a lot of like bigger community stuff that goes on with that zine vendor stuff.
Much respect to that.
Vendors, but no one's actually selling anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I looked at. It looked like at most there was like
vendors. That way people don't have to leave the island. That's the one thing.
And for water too. Like I'm assuming they have to buy water.
Set up through Make Music New York, actually. Right.
Well, is that where they buy water too, or do you have like a water?
There's a ton of stuff that We get cases of water the day of.
Okay.
There's a bunch of stuff that we put out money for that we get. Antonio,
Awesome.
actually, who is the president of everything right now, he really takes care of a lot of that stuff. Like, they go out to Costco with a big, list of everything that everyone needed, wanted, and really.
Is that Tony from Winterwolf?
No, Antonio.
Antonio,
Rodriguez,
okay.
He does Punk Island. He's part of the Gilligan stage. Him and Pete from NCM. Pete's got a bunch of other bands. He's a New Paltz guy.
Okay.
But,
so how does one?
Yeah, and actually, so yeah, for like, if you want to say that.
No, I mean, you helped. I mean,
we had a lot to do with it ourselves, and booking stuff like that for Box Fest is really, the one big thing that did it. And Pete Crotty from NCM, he's the person who was really good friends with Box, who got us on Punk Island. That was actually my first show at Punk Island, was with Exit 17 because of James and Pete and the Gilligan stage and Antonio.
Yeah.
But Antonio really, the guy really takes care of it.
He's great. Him and Arlene, everyone's awesome.
That's awesome.
Everyone on the everyone who is part of it really does their part. They really pull their weight.
Yeah, we're having our first meeting next month. It's truly it's a well-oiled machine. We just have to kind of filter through. I'm not shaking.
No, the screen's shaking.
So I mean, you guys weren't there from the beginning. So you just kind of mentioned how you came upon it. Is there a constant or consistent search for new people to come in and be part of it? Or would that become untenable if you had too many people? Like, how do you manage the growth and keeping it inclusive but without going so big that it's like, we can't manage this anymore?
So, I mean, every stage has got their own group of people who does their own, I don't want to say divided work, but their own specific stage stuff. And then, amongst that, obviously, there's other groups of people in the punk scene, in the heavy music scene. There's death metal, there's grindcore, there's noise, there's punk, there's ska, there's, you name it. There, there was a ton of other stuff. Like, Gabe used to do Big Orange, and that was like a strictly ska stage. So there was not genre divided so much, but there's always a big mix, obviously, in it.
So every stage has their own vision.
We like to see, and we like to see other people who are doing a ton of booking in the area to really push for them to have a stage and really work for it. But whatever it be, they've been slowly getting bigger and bigger, and we see a ton of New York promoters and tri-state area promoters who would really fit the bill and be able to have their own stage. And I think the more the merrier, really. I don't think that it gets out of control as long as it's maintained. We have a handful of meetings before we go and do this. There's tons of meetings. There's one.
But there's just got to be a limitation of space,
there's
right?
One a week in the month before. There's a lot of physical meetups. We used to meet in person all the time. Now it's all like this, but we do monthlies, and then coming up to it, there's tons of checkups, and everyone is doing their thing,
But there's got to be a physical space limit, though, right? You've got 7 stages. Maybe you can go to 14, but you couldn't go to 21, right? At a certain point, there's got to be.
I don't know, man. No, I would say that.
Don't tell him that.
I would say no.
Because that'll happen.
The real limit to it would be paying for power.
Gotcha.
That would be the biggest cost, is the electricity. Because I think the space is actually there. At Randall's Island, when we've done 12 stages, we probably could have done 21 stages without a doubt, actually, thinking about it. It was really just having the power to do it.
Okay. Fascinating.
If anyone wants to
sponsor power?
Donate their energy. Sponsored by Energy.
Sponsored by Energy.
Yeah, all right, we haven't announced the test yet.
All right. Speaking of announcing, have you announced who's playing the Lunchbox stage yet? Is there any hints that you're allowed to share?
Have you looked at the sign-up yet? I haven't even looked at the sign-up yet.
No. I mean, there's people that we have been talking to for years that we're working on, but we're gonna keep those under wraps because we don't want to spoil headliners if they don't say yes or no yet. But
I get it.
We're always working upwards and onwards. You know what I mean? And either way, it's gonna be fun. It's our WrestleMania, it's our Super Bowl of the year. We're shot afterwards, but it's a good tired. It's after a good workout, and you're dirty.
You're grungy.
We just know that we're a part of it, and we're trying to wave the flag and circle back to what you were saying. help people get in. Like they just announced submissions, they just announced volunteers, and we've met a lot of cool people that have volunteered, and they keep coming. And if they have a band, either we become friends with them or they play Punk Island. So people want to volunteer, or like if they come and they do, if they help out, they come, we can vote. There's a voting process for getting them on the quote unquote board, and they come to the meetings, and then that's the way we got in. So
I think that's great that you actually get volunteers. Like most festivals, volunteers do it so they can get free tickets. But there's no reason to volunteer at Punk Island because it's already free. But you're still getting
a free show.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's phenomenal to me. That like speaks to the community that you're building.
And like, dude, you're saying like, how do we vet people for stages and stuff? Like, we see the stuff that you're doing in the Hudson Valley.
Oh, thank you, dude.
I would love to see DCPC have a stage because I know you'd run a sick fucking stage.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I would fucking indeed.
Yeah, 100%.
And on top of that, like you'd have a sick team and you'd put I know you'd have your shit together with it, and it would be like you said. How do you know that everyone's doing their thing? Because we get people like yourself who are trustworthy and capable of doing the kind of stuff.
Well, that is very kind of you to say,
and want to see do it.
I feel like I need to go to one before I can even consider doing that.
You're saying like, do we have bands booked? No, not exactly, but. We're waiting to see a ton of stuff come in because I know that everyone hasn't applied yet. So we kind of we wait to see, we want to see it roll in and see who's actually going to apply. But we also have the shows booked now. So I know you're talking about doing Sunday matinees up in Kingston. We're going to be doing the last Sunday of February, March, and April for Punk Island benefits. So all the stages are required to do benefit shows. They're required to do 2. We're going to be doing at least 3, like I just said. But
and they're all going to be in New York City, or are they going to be everywhere?
They're all in the tri-state area. Basically, whoever promotes these shows and whoever does these shows, they have to do these shows. They have to do the benefits. So you'll see them pop up in Brooklyn, Long Island, Queens, all through.
Green Growler and Croton does a lot of them.
Croton on Hudson does them for the people in Westchester County.
All right, super rad.
Thing. Like it doesn't run on punk time.
I know. I put the punk in punctuality. So like my world is all about always being on time and managing shit the right way. I don't do late. I don't do tardy. I end on time. If you say I got 23 minutes and 15 seconds to play, I play 23 minutes and 15 seconds. So what's been like? I hear all the positives, and I'm sure most of it is like. What's been your biggest like struggle? If you had to name one struggle that like, damn, this is the one thing that would like make this all go easier in a non like criticizing anybody way, but just say like this would be a barrier that we would really love to have removed.
There's a reason why large concerts have security. There are people that drink and do drugs. Like I want to shine lights on.
It's an all ages free event. People do show up, and it's technically it's a family thing. So when there's a problem, it's good that we do have the security we have, but that's a big thing, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe and nothing dangerous has happened in the 8-9 years we've been there. I've been playing this a long time and working on it for a couple of years now. But yeah, just like making a joke about it. But yeah, like there's people that like, you can't plan on what they're going to do. So it's kind of like, we've had some people that we had to say you need to leave, you need to put that away, like that kind of stuff. And there's bands that we've had that, and there's certain bands without shining any light on any of them, but just like there's bands that have played in one and then they've gotten canceled or something's happened, and that's happened in every fest, and look at Warped Tour.
Yeah, well, I mean, but you're talking about like you're patrolling a park and saying there's no drugs and alcohol, and I've got a water bottle and it's filled with vodka, and I've got a pen that looks like a vape pen, but it's really what you call it, right? It sounds like a difficult thing to police, and nothing you would really want to. I think just saying in general it's not expected.
If no one's acting out or being ridiculous, what are you going to do?
It doesn't matter. No, I agree. Like, I think you're doing the right thing. Please don't know that was not a criticism. It was a question of like, on some level, you've created a community expectation, and I think anyone that tries to go around it is going to have to do it in such a subtle way that it doesn't cause a problem.
Well, it's something that comes to my mind is that every year somebody's going to comment, that's not punk. You know what I mean? On our, whether it's like their band didn't play or we have to like not police, but like, you know what I mean?
You know what? If there was one criticism, It's from people who say that's not punk.
Yeah. No, I get it.
That's not,
I used to
you know
be, I
what?
was a
We're
founding
sorry we're
motor
not
and
punk
promoter
enough.
of,
No, seriously, I'm sorry I'm not. Because, dude, I can't.
I was a
You can,
founding,
like, you can be. Look, you can be subtle about it. You don't have to be like slamming a fucking
yeah,
PBR in fucking 4-year-old's
sure.
face, dude. You
You
don't.
ruin
You
it for
don't.
you
You're a
ruin it
fucking.
ruin
Yeah.
it for
You're a
everybody.
fucking jerk off. All right.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, no,
not
that is
fucking punk.
being a jerk off. I used to be I was a founding member and promoter of the
Yeah,
Trump City
exactly.
Art Space in
And that's
Baltimore.
not punk.
Yeah.
It's not
You know?
punk. And it was a
Yeah.
nonprofit and it was
Look,
DIY and there
there's
was
a
no
time and a
drugs and
place. And
alcohol.
kids, yeah.
So there's a bar around the corner, drink there in between the bands. They come back, buy a soda, and watch the band with a soda in your hand. And if you had to smoke weed, go out in the alley. So, I get it. Understood. One of those moments where you said, this moment right now is so fucking great. This is why we do this. This is what I'm loving. This is the community. This is the music. Like, what was that moment? Can you think of some moments where that happened where you're like, yeah, fuck yeah?
I mean, every year something like that happens. I mean, talking about Atlanta on Father's Day, there are some fathers that bring their kids out, and there's a whole community of punk dads and their kids going in the pit with their kids on the shoulders. Like, they do it almost every year, so that'll always put a smile on my face. It's a special moment for us because we wouldn't have Punk On without our friend Lunchbox and the band Exit 17 in New Paltz. And so it's really a reminder of just his friendship and being able to celebrate him, have his name be a part of our stage, like that. That's really cool. That for me, and I know for Mike, that like we get to let our friend live on in that way. Seeing so many awesome bands and being able to hook it up for friends when the stars align. Yeah, and it was definitely a turning point for our band because once we started playing more, people started taking us not more seriously, but I feel like they were just like, oh, like they're coming out of the city more, like, and that kind of started the journey of putting the mileage in,
Yeah. I mean, how many bands do you get that are outside of New York City or New York entirely that show up for, do you think, on average?
There's a good percentage of them, actually. We've had bands come from Japan. There's been bands that came from California. We've tried to line up bands from the West Coast before. There's bands from Chicago, Florida. Like, they come from all over the place, actually. Like,
Yeah.
there's a ton of New York bands. And I would say that's one thing with the festival and the date never being solid is that it makes it hard for bands from out of state to try to make something like this happen.
Sure.
It's
already hard enough to say what you're going to do 3 months from now or 4 months from now. But it's even harder if you can't give someone a firm date as to when that's going to happen.
Right. And I would say, like, we get a lot of criticism from that, too. The people are like, hey, like, why can't you just tell us the dates? Like, because to be honest, there is no solid date. So that's yeah.
How far out from the actual date do you get the date, though? Like, is it 3 months, 2 months?
We know in April, maybe the end of March, but April.
And it's usually to
the whole thing is with New York City and the permits. New York City makes it hard with the permits, and we end up actually, going through with it most of the time without waiting for the permit to be okayed because they take forever with that stuff because it's some bureaucratic stuff and it's like the biggest city in the world.
Sure, absolutely is,
So,
right?
to go through that bureaucratic crap is like a whole nother thing. And that's why Make Music New York actually makes it very easy because, at least we just go through them and they get it taken care of instead of us like jumping through every burning hoop to get it taken care of.
No, and I get that. I mean, we were talking.
It's not the price. It's the price of it,
in April, that's still like 2 months notice.
Yeah, but still, you've applied now and now you're being told that you can come. And now you got to line up a tour. You got to line up a tour for 55 days from now. That can be a thing.
I get that. And it's hard. It's like, okay, if you don't tell me for 2 months, like I would tell a band to start booking their tour at least 3 or 4 months out, not 2 months out.
Right. But how do they book dates? How do they book the dates when you don't know the dates?
I don't know what to say to that. Does that and not to ask, like, does that cause a lot of cancellations? People say they wanted to do it, but then when the date finally comes through, they can't. Yeah.
It definitely makes it harder because you got these like floating situations basically, and like we said, there's no real guarantees for bands. So that, you're really like,
yeah,
you're
like playing for free and you're playing for free and we can't tell you the exact date.
Please.
But like the attendance is high. Like I've seen the videos. Like how many people do you think show up in a weekend?
People are coming no matter what. Yeah. People are coming no matter what. And it's almost taken advantage of at that point. And I love that. But I love that everyone comes. I really do.
Yeah. So, and this is very DIY-esque. It's very committee run, which I very much appreciate. And is there anyone that's been there from the beginning, or has it changed over, to the point where like no one is OG?
It's Antonio, Arlene, and ourselves are the oldest.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is Antonio from the beginning or Arlene at all?
No one's from the beginning.
Okay, so
no one's from the beginning.
But
that's
we
okay.
do get people from the beginning we've heard of that, they come in and maybe like will be a guest in a group or whatever, or kind of help us and learn from future, from the past. But yeah, it's really strong. We have a really great team from every stage. Everyone's on point. The day of, everyone's ready.
Who handles all like the social media for the thing? Because like social media is unfortunately both good and bad, and it's how you spread the word of the festival. Like, who handles that? Arlene.
Actually.
Yeah.
So Arlene, yeah. I don't know her last name anymore because she recently got married. Woo! But
congratulations, Arlene.
Taking Back Queens, which I'm not sure if it has a new name now, but she had taken a year off basically last year because she was getting married and she was doing a lot of that planning. But she still stayed doing the planning for Punk Island, and she's the one who does all the social media stuff there. She actually did all of our stuff for our last record, the PR and whatnot. She runs Crystal Moon PR.
Okay.
So she does that all the time.
I believe that's the name of her stage, actually, the new stage.
It's Crystal Moon.
But Arlene's awesome. She did a great job with our record, and she does a great job. She's a force to be reckoned with.
I mean, dude, she does all of that. Like, you see all those posts? She does all of the posts for Punk Island.
Wow.
She does every single one of them. And, dude, yeah, if you see it as it's just cranking out the weeks before, you're like,
yeah.
Like, she gets on everybody. She's like, everybody, I need your stuff. Everybody, I need your stuff. And, like, I'm, like, a few days before the deadline, and I'm like, I'm sorry, here you go. And she's like, no, you're good. It's the people who aren't going to get it to me by the time that I'm posting the first set of stuff that, like, sometimes it's the fire, And she does. She brings the fire. She takes care of it.
That's awesome. I love the group collaborative effort. Like, that speaks so much to the punk rock community. Like, I feel like you guys are really... You and the rest of the committee are carrying the flame of the whole DIY punk scene.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're trying. It means a lot to us to keep it going.
I mean, dude, the Punk Island thing, that came from us doing Hudson Valley stuff, really. Like, we've been booking shows for forever because, like...
No one would book us.
Well, yeah, but at a certain point, I mean, the heavy music scene was kind of dead here, So if you weren't in a well-known heavy band in the Hudson Valley, you weren't going to be playing a bunch of big shows, So it was very, like, small fish, and we cultivated a scene for small fish, And as that happened, like, dude, there's so many bands that, like we helped them get their first show together, Like, and I'm so happy that we could do that with people, And so many people that have come to their first show, on a whim because we handed them a sticker or told them to come out. Like that shit is really, like, it really fucking makes me happy. Like, that's the stuff that really touches my heart with the whole situation, and, like, cultivating the scene and, like, watching it grow and seeing people come out and wanting to be a part of it and like, totally submerging themselves in it. It really, like, it's fucking awesome to see happen. And it's grown to, us being a part of Punk Island and really pushing that and even going farther with that.
It's awesome. Yeah, I totally feel that. Like, one of the reasons I do shows, like I'm doing those, you mentioned the shows at Snappers.
Like, we would book a ton of our own shows, but like, it showed other people that, like...
Yeah. You
say what?
I was saying, like, you had mentioned that I'm doing those monthly shows at Snappers, and the owner's like, what's in it for you? I was like, I like my punk rock community, and there's not enough punk rock shows in the area, and I want to do them, and I want to bring bands I like. If the shows are happening that I want to see aren't happening, then I need to make the shows happen myself, and I'm going to book the bands I dig.
Right. If you build it, they'll come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. It's the whole, like, Field of Dreams. Like, but I've done that my whole life for like 30 plus years. That's what I've done. It's like, no one's booking the show here, so I'm going to start booking the show here, and I'm going to make it happen as best I can. So
let's build a spaceship.
Exactly. Let's make it fucking happen. Like, which gets to the whole ethos of this podcast, right? It's like everyone likes to talk about all the bands, but it's the other work, like the work that you guys are doing. I could talk about RBNX and tell you how much I love your band. I love you live. I love your recording, kind people, et cetera, et cetera. But there's 1,000 fucking podcasts that talk about the bands. But your work that you're doing at Punk Island, I'm an atheist, but that's God's work right there. right?
It's some kind of.
It's not my kind of God. I don't believe in a God. But if I did believe in a God, that would be God's work right there. Like,
We'll take the small kudos, but it's everybody. We couldn't. I don't know how we'd be able to. It would do it without everybody. As like cheesy and cliche as it is, but like, yeah, we do our stage because it's really. I mean, for us, that's easy. Bringing gear, setting it up, and telling our friends when to play. That's the easy part, it's like, but a collective, like you're working with so many different personalities and people who have different opinions on things. And the beauty of having your own stage is like, all right, well, then you do yours and we'll do ours. And as long as like, we try to figure out what's going to work best for everybody. It truly is a collective, but, we appreciate it. But it's not just ours. It's everybody that works there. And it's also the bands and the people that come too. People actually come and bands mean something.
Sure.
I mean,
if bands wouldn't come and people wouldn't come, what's the point?
Yeah,
but I
understand. You said before.
But it's also cool to see, like, like you get your fucking street punks, you get your fucking hardcore kids, like you get your fucking black punks who come out, like supporting and shit like that. Like you get your trans punks, like you get everybody fucking coming out. Like you really get like a nice fucking a great mix of people because of how many like stages are really pulling from as far out as they can to bring it in.
And so like two things.
Really
One,
cool.
I totally get in a respect, like you guys are a sliver of the committee. And so when I say you guys, and I mean you people, non-gender specific, I mean everyone involved in Punk Island is doing the atheist God work.
Yeah.
And as
100%.
And as far as diversity, I 100% agree. And, I'm doing it on a much smaller scale, but that's kind of my goal when I do shows is I don't want it all to be heavy hardcore. I don't want to have just 5 ska bands or 5 pop punk bands or 5 skate rock bands or 5, grindcore bands. I want to go and see 5 bands who sound...
5 grindcore bands be
5 grindcore bands over so fast. I was like, they'll share equipment too, to make it even faster.
They all have the same drummer.
That poor drummer.
Nate. This guy. Mike plays drums? Mike plays drums. He's got a double bass drum set downstairs.
You ever seen the monkey just wind up?
No.
That's him.
I want to say it was like sometime in the mid to late 90s I first heard of grindcore, and I got this tape. It was like Virginia Son of Bleh! And it was something like 60 bands on one tape. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like,
it's a lot.
I don't know if I love this or I hate this, but it's like, it takes all the stuff from like the very first DRI recording and then turns it up to like 15. And I was like, oh, I don't even know.
It was all recorded in the woods.
Place and a time, just like everything else.
It was, and the song titles were longer than the actual fucking songs.
Yes.
I was like, by the time I read the song title, the song was over.
That's
I
why
was
we
like,
shortened our band name.
Yeah, and we won't get into why that band name exists because this isn't a podcast about bands. So
no worries about that.
But I still love your band, even though your band name is. I used to think you were a
No Effects cover band.
No, I thought you were like an amp or something like that, or some sort of like recording equipment. I saw your stickers everywhere when I got up here, and I was like, it's like your PV or like something like that. I thought you were some Gibson or Marshall or Orange.
I was just looking at.
I literally thought you were like some sort of technology sticker.
Yeah, we're technology.
We're very high tech.
We're
in a low tech world.
All right. Already shared that you think people should know, what would it be?
That's a great question. I would definitely say like you got to see it to believe it. The picture you can hear Punk Island in its pictures. Go look at any of the pictures of Punk Island and what you see is what you get. You know what I mean? It's the real deal, and it's truly a beautiful day for punk rock and community. I mean, that's the only way I could sum it up. If this conversation hasn't sold you on going, please go and have some fun because it's going to be awesome.
Please go anyway.
Yeah, I would say get there early, stay late. Really, that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's very well worth your time and your money.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands that have played that are now opening up for bands. We all have posters on our walls. You might see a band that you remember that time where you saw that one band in a field. There's been Super Soaker fights. It's just one of those days where it's like we can't tell you what this year's going to be like, but we have the confidence to say that it's like you have to come. You have to see it to truly believe it. Look at any of the pictures, look at any of the videos, and if you want to help us out and volunteer, we'll take, we'll definitely love to help, help facilitate.
Help.
Yeah, have the help, and we'll be there. So yeah,
Fuck yeah.
we'll be there.
All right. Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Punk Island, and everyone involved in it for all you do. The committee, the bands, the people that go out to the fucking show. Not me, apparently, but I will make it this year.
It'll keep going. It definitely keeps going, whatever it is. So, COVID slowed it down, but there's no stopping it at this point. Like, it's a yearly event that will continue.
That's awesome. So thank you, Mike and Phil. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been DCPC Live Scene Support.